So in the last lesson, we studied the idea pattern,
Uh-huh.
right? Or not, we didn't actually study the pattern. We just studied the concept of an idea, and we didn't study the pattern,
Right.
right? And so if we're not going to learn the pattern, kind of what's the point of learning about an idea at all?
Uh-huh.
So the reason we learn about an idea is because there are a few grammar points that use the idea pattern,
Okay.
right? And so being familiar with the concept of an idea will help you identify those grammar points.
All right.
Okay, so the first grammar point that uses the idea pattern is called the why.
All right.
And let's look at why it's called the why. So let's look at some sentences here. So I discipline my children out of love for them. Okay, notice the bracketed parts.
Such a parent thing to say.
It is. And then we avoid processed sugar because of health reasons. Notice the bracket parts here again. And then that boy does not study out of laziness. Notice the bracketed parts here again. So the bracketed parts in each sentence, what do they have in common?
Well, the sentences are complete ideas without them.
Yeah, so I discipline my children can be a full sentence. We avoid
Uh-huh.
processed sugar is a sentence on its own. And that boy does not study can be a sentence on its own as well. But what do they tell you, these parts?
Why the action took place?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's called the why.
Okay.
Right?
figures.
Because these things tell you why the action took place. So
Uh-huh.
why do I discipline my children?
Because you love them.
Because I love them. And why do I avoid processed sugar?
Because it's bad for your health.
Because bad for your health or for health reasons. And then why does that boy not study?
Because he's lazy.
Because he's lazy, right? So you actually hit on the two main points. One is that it's a kind of an extra bit, right? You have a complete sentence without it. And the other is that it explains to you why an action happened.
Okay.
So let's look at some examples of the why in Arabic, and then we'll see the commonalities. So here we have خرج المسلمون من مكة خوفا من قريش, translating as the Muslims left Mecca out of fear of Quraysh. So the why in Arabic is here خوفا من قريش, and then in English you can tell me what the why is.
Out of fear of Quraysh.
Out
Because
of
it answers
fear.
the question, why did they leave Mecca?
Right, out of fear of Quraysh, it tells you why the Muslims left Mecca. And then we have أطاعوا الرسول حبا له, translating as they obeyed the Prophet out of love for him. And I'll tell you that in Arabic, the why is حبا له, and in English it is
Out of love for him. Because
Right.
it answers the question, why do they obey the
why do
Prophet?
they obey the Prophet, right? The answer is a why question. And then our last one, أرسل الله رسلا رحمة للعالمين, translating as Allah sent the messengers out of mercy for the world. And so in Arabic, the why is رحمة للعالمين, and in English it is, you can tell me.
Out of mercy for the world, because it answers the question, why did Allah send messengers?
Right, and he sent them out of mercy. So let's look for the common threads in these whys in Arabic. So first, what's an easy observation we can make?
They all have the receiver label.
They all have the receiver label, right? They all have a receiver label, so that's 1 point. And then khawf means fear, right? Hub means love, and rahmah means mercy. What kind of words are those?
They're all ideas.
They're all ideas, right? Because fear is an intangible idea, and it can be linked back to an action.
fear.
To fear, right? Love is an intangible idea, and it can be linked back to
An action to love.
love, right? And then mercy is an intangible idea, and it can be linked back to an action
To show mercy.
to show mercy, right? And then we notice that they're all coming at what part of the sentence?
At the end, except for TLDRs.
At the end, except for TLDRs. Sounds familiar, right?
Right.
A receiver label coming at the end, except for TLDRs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Except that the difference is the word pattern. Okay, so the rules for the why, which we kind of observe, but we'll go over them formally. It'll always be an idea,
Okay.
right? Always. Okay, and then it will always have the end label, that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
It'll always be general. Actually, this is similar to what we saw, the qualifier
Uh-huh.
is always general.
And so were the adverbs, the target.
Yeah,
agent
the
adverbs.
adverb, target, agent, adverb. So a lot of these rules overlap. The difference is in the word pattern,
Right.
right? So that's why it's important to know your word patterns.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they all had the end label.
they all had the end label.
They were all general.
Right.
They all came out at the end of the sentence,
Yep.
except for TLDRs.
Yep.
But the only difference is
the word pattern.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, and actually that's a kind of a good hint. So if you see all three of these conditions, we know that adverbs and agents and all the other patterns we learned follow specific patterns. So if you see something following these three conditions and it's not an agent or an adverb, probably an idea.
Okay.
Okay. And then how do we translate an idea? Anything that translates as, that tells you why something happened. So common translations for that will be out of, like out of fear, out of love, or because, obviously, or for, and sometimes even as. Okay? And let's look at some examples from the Quran here. Okay? وَأَعْيُنُهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمْعِ حَزَنًا أَلَّا يَجِدُوا مَا يُنْفِقُونَ, translating as, their eyes overflow with tears out of sadness, that they cannot find anything to contribute.
Gotcha.
Right? So out of sadness, telling you why their eyes overflow with tears.
Okay.
And then hazanan is you haven't learned the vocab for this, but it means sadness. The translation's there for you, and it's idea, right, linked to an action, to be sad.
So it's idea, it's general, has the
And label.
And it's coming. It's we say at the end because yejidu is an action, new sentence.
Yeah, okay. New action makes a new sentence. Good. So it meets all the conditions of an idea. And then one more example here. وَمَا تُنْفِقُونَ إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ اللَّهِ. You only spend in order to seek the pleasure of Allah. So in order to seek tells us the why, right? Why do you spend? You spend in order to seek the pleasure of Allah. And if we look at the idea in Arabic, we have ibtigha'a, right? Which means seeking, right? It has a label. It has a receiver label. What were the other conditions? There's no al, right? It's coming near the end of the sentence.
We say it's at the, because it's a possessive chain, right?
It's a possessive chain.
General, specific.
Yeah.
So technically it's at the end because it's part of a fragment.
It is. It's part of the fragment that is in the last place.
Okay.
Right? Because you can't separate these, right? You can't separate ibtigha and wajh and Allah. So they're considered one unit. So technically,
fragments are one unit.
So it's coming at the end of the sentence. So it meets all the conditions for a why.
Okay.
So recap of the why.
Okay, so the why tells you, I mean, it's in the name of the thing, but it tells you why an action happened.
And it tells you why an action happened.
It will, so in Arabic, the way we recognize it is that it'll always be an idea. It will have, and then the rest of the rules are the same as the other one. So it will have the end label. It will be general.
Right.
And it will come at the end of the sentence.
Come at the end of the sentence. Very good.